Somewhere in the Persian Gulf right now, a 28-year-old sailor from Mumbai is sitting in an oil tanker that hasn't moved in 5 weeks. He can't leave. The strait is mined. There's gunboats in the water. He didn't sign up for a war, he signed up to move oil. But now he's one of more than 20,000 sailors trapped in the Persian Gulf. All because of a conflict that's been building since before his parents were born. You want to understand how we got here? We have to go back. Way back. Turn on the news right now and you'll see drone footage, missile trails, guys in suits pointing at maps. And every headline reads, Iran war. And everyone's reacting like this came out of nowhere, like the world just decided to randomly explode one Tuesday morning. And it didn't. This has been building, actively building, for over 100 years. And if you don't know the history, you don't understand the war. Full stop. You're just watching a fire without knowing who lit the match, who poured the petrol, and who locked all the exits. But that's what this show is. We're going back. And we're going all the way back because the story of Iran is one of the most fascinating, tragic, and infuriating stories in modern history. And nobody is telling it properly. Welcome to After Action. I'm Josh. Let's get into it. Okay, 1951. Picture this. Iran has a democratically elected prime minister. His name is Mohammad Mehdi, and the man is an absolute rock star. He's on the cover of Time magazine as Person of the Year. He's wearing pajamas to parliament because he has a heart condition and genuinely does not care what anybody thinks of him. Iranians love this guy. And here's what he does. He looks at his country, which is sitting on an absolute ocean of oil, and he notices that a British company, the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, is basically robbing them blind. They're taking most of the profits, and Iranians are getting crumbs from their own resources. So Mehdi does what any reasonable elected leader should do. He nationalizes the oil. He says, this is ours and we're keeping it. So you'd think the story would end there. Good for them. Self-determination, democracy in action, happy days. No. Britain panics. They go crying to America, and in 1953, this is real, this is documented, and the CIA has literally declassified the files. The United States and Britain orchestrate a coup. They call it Operation Ajax. They bribe Iranian politicians, pay thugs to riot in the streets. Then they remove the democratically elected prime minister from power. And then they put in their guy, the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a king, backed by the West and backed by American dollars and British intelligence. And here's what I want you to understand. You want to know why Iranians don't trust the West? You want to know why, to this day, America is a dirty word to half of that country? This is it. This moment, right here, 1953, the day they looked at their own democracy, something they had built, and watched foreign powers flush it down the toilet because of oil. And that wound has never healed because why would it? The Shah rules for 26 years. And look, he modernizes the country in some ways. Women get rights and the economy grows, but he also runs a brutal secret police called Savak. People disappear, people get tortured. And who's backing all of this? Washington. Because he keeps the oil flowing and he's their guy. Then comes 1979. The Iranian people have had enough. Enough of the Shah, enough of Western interference, enough of the whole rotten system. And into that vacuum walks Ayatollah Khamenei, a radical cleric who's been in exile for 15 years, and he absolutely sweeps into power. The Islamic Republic is born, and from day one, its entire identity is built around one thing: death to America. Death to Israel. Never again will a foreign power tell us what to do. You can disagree with their ideology all you want, but you cannot pretend you don't understand where it came from. So now it's the 1980s. Iran has a new revolutionary government that hates America, and America has lost a strategic ally. Things are about to get a lot worse. 1979. Iranian students seize the U.S. Embassy in Tehran. They take 52 Americans hostage, and they hold them for 444 days. This is the wound that America never forgave. It's in the DNA of U.S.-Iran relations from that point forward, that image of blindfolded American diplomats being paraded around on television. But here's what they don't teach you in school. While the hostage crisis is playing out, Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, invades Iran, a full-scale invasion. And America, despite publicly claiming neutrality, covertly supports Saddam. They give him intelligence. They look the other way when he uses chemical weapons on Iranian soldiers and Kurdish civilians. Chemical weapons, and Washington just shrugs. The war lasts 8 years. 8 years. 1 million people are dead. And Iran fought it largely alone, betrayed by the international community, while the West quietly cheered for Saddam. Think about that for a second. Think about what that does to a nation's psyche. Fast forward to the 1990s and the early 2000s, Iran has been battered. Its economy is strangled by sanctions, but something else is also happening. Quietly. Underground. And I mean that quite literally. Iran starts building a nuclear program. Now, they say it's for civilian energy, and maybe some of it is, but the West is absolutely not buying it. The IAEA starts rattling its cage. The U.S. starts drafting sanctions packages. And then George W. Bush in 2002 drops 3 words that permanently blow up any chance of a quiet diplomacy. Axis of evil. Iran, Iraq, North Korea. Lumped together, branded enemies of humanity. In a State of the Union address watched by millions and millions of people. Iran had actually been quietly cooperating with the U.S. after 9/11, sharing intelligence on al-Qaeda, helping to stabilize Afghanistan. They sent signals. Maybe we can work something out. And then they turned on the TV and heard themselves being called an axis of evil. The moderates in Tehran who were pushing for engagement, politically destroyed overnight. The hardliners who said we can never trust America looked like absolute prophets. And this is what I mean when I say history matters. Literally every door in history that could have been opened, someone has kicked it shut. Okay, so we're getting to recent history now. Stay with me because this is where it genuinely gets wild. 2015. Barack Obama, after years of painstaking diplomacy, gets something that seemed impossible done. A nuclear deal with Iran. The JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, is made. Iran agrees to dramatically scale back its nuclear program. International inspectors get access, and in return, crippling sanctions are lifted by the West. And is it a perfect deal? No. Is it better than no deal? Absolutely. Obviously, demonstratively, yes. And it works. The IAEA confirms repeatedly that Iran is holding up its end. And then, in 2018, Donald Trump, first term, tears it up. Unilaterally. Now, Iran is no longer bound by the deal's restrictions. They can start enriching uranium again, faster, higher grade, and by 2025, right before everything exploded, the IAEA reports Iran had accumulated enough enriched uranium for 9 nuclear warheads. 9. And then it gets personal. January 2020. Qasem Soleimani, the most powerful military commander in Iran and the architect of Iran's entire regional strategy, is killed by a U.S. drone strike at the Baghdad airport. The reaction in Iran is unlike anything the world had seen. Millions in the streets, genuine, overwhelming grief and rage, and a promise of revenge that they definitely have not forgotten. The next few years are a proxy war on steroids. Iran-backed Houthis in Yemen, Hezbollah in Lebanon rearming, Iranian-backed militias in Iraq firing at U.S. bases, Israeli and Iranian strikes trading blows in Syria. The whole region is an absolute thunderbox. And then, June 2025, Israel launches what they call a preemptive strike, the 12-day war. Bombs falling on Iranian nuclear sites and military facilities, scientists and generals assassinated. Iran retaliates with over 550 ballistic missiles and over 1,000 drones. The United States jumps in and strikes Iranian nuclear sites directly. 12 days of open warfare. A ceasefire holds. Barely. But nothing is resolved. The nuclear stockpile is still there. And the rage is also still there. Then, the bottom falls out inside Iran. Late 2025, the Iranian economy completely collapses. The currency is worthless. Ordinary people can't afford food. And millions of Iranians, and I mean millions, the biggest protest since 1979, pour into the streets. They're not just angry about the economy. They're calling for the end of the Islamic Republic entirely. And the government's response? They massacre them. In January 2026, security forces gunned down thousands of their own civilians in the streets. Thousands. Human rights groups documented over 7,000 confirmed deaths, and some estimates have reached as high as 35,000. The Iranian government's own figure was over 3,000. Either number is a massacre. Trump responds by threatening military intervention. He announces the largest U.S. military buildup in the Middle East since the 2003 invasion of Iraq. 2 aircraft carrier groups, guided missile destroyers, the whole works. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister is in Geneva saying that a historic deal is within reach, that diplomacy can still work, that there's still a path. And then, on February 28th, 2026, while those very negotiations were still happening, the US and Israel launch a surprise attack on Iran. The strikes kill Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei along with senior military and government officials. Bombs hit military sites, government buildings, and yes, schools. Iran retaliates immediately, launching hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles at Israel and at U.S. military bases across the region. Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. Iranian proxies in Iraq start firing on U.S. positions. A drone hits a British military base in Cyprus, and Iran slams shut the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which 20% of the world's oil travels. The global economy goes into complete shock. Oil prices explode. Gas in America hits $4 a gallon and keeps climbing. Stock markets crater. Countries as far away as the Philippines declare national emergencies over their energy supply. The war spreads. Hezbollah joins in from Lebanon in early March. Israel responds by sending troops into southern Lebanon. Over 300 Lebanese civilians are killed in a single day of Israeli airstrikes. 1.5 million people are displaced. Lebanon is burning. Iran strikes Saudi oil infrastructure. Black smoke billows from the world's largest crude processing facility. South Korea's economy gets hammered. Pacific Island nations can barely afford to keep the lights on. And through all of this, Trump is posting things like, "A whole civilization will die tonight." He threatens to bomb Iran's power plants, bridges, and civilian infrastructure. NATO allies refuse to join the war, and Trump calls NATO a paper tiger and says they failed the test. Then, April 7th, Trump sets a deadline: open the Strait of Hormuz or face total war. In this definition, total war just means everything is on the table targeting-wise. Anything that can help the enemy. Bridges, power plants, anything like that. A major escalation. But hours before the deadline hits, Iran blinks. They agree to a 2-week ceasefire. Trump immediately declares total and complete victory. But here's the reality on the ground right now, today, as you're listening to this, or at least when this video came out. The ceasefire is hanging on by a thread. Israel is still bombing Lebanon and says Lebanon is not part of the ceasefire deal. Iran's new supreme leader, the son of the man the U.S. just killed, is publicly vowing revenge for his father's death. Iran-backed militias in Iraq attacked U.S. diplomats in Baghdad just a couple days ago, and the Strait of Hormuz, though technically open, has almost no traffic going through it because of the threat of attack. And as of today, literally today, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance is flying to Islamabad, Pakistan for talks with Iran scheduled for tomorrow. Iran's parliament speaker is on the record saying that time is running out, that the ceasefire everyone is calling fragile is already showing cracks. We're not watching the end of this story. We're watching a chapter break, and nobody knows what the next chapter looks like. All right, here's my take, and I'm going to be straight with you. You don't have to agree with everything I'm about to say, but I think someone needs to say it. The media covers this conflict like it started yesterday, like Iran just decided randomly to be a problem, and that framing does a disservice to everyone, to you as a listener and viewer, and to any hope of actual understanding, and frankly to the people dying on all the sides of this. And so here's what I think we need to understand. First, Iran's regime is genuinely dangerous, repressive, and has done horrible things. The massacre of protesters, support for terrorist proxies, the nuclear brinksmanship. That is real, and it's wrong. Fully. 2. At the same time, the West is not innocent in this story. The 1953 coup, backing Saddam in the Iran-Iraq war, ripping up the nuclear deal when it was working, launching strikes while negotiations were literally still happening. These aren't conspiracy theories. They're documented facts, and pretending like they didn't happen doesn't make the conflict more solvable. It makes it less solvable, because you can't negotiate with someone if you don't understand why they don't trust you. 3. The Iranian people are not the Iranian government. Millions of Iranians have been in the streets risking their lives, screaming for freedom. The same people getting bombed from the outside and massacred from within. That distinction matters, and it matters a lot. 4. This ceasefire is fragile. The nuclear question is unresolved. Whatever comes next, whether it's a deal or another round of fighting, it will once again come down to the same fundamental problem that has haunted this relationship since 1953. Can these two worlds find a way to trust each other enough to step back from the brink? History says no. but history has been surprised before. Okay, let's bring it all home. So what did we cover today? We went from the 1953 CIA coup that overthrew Iran's democracy, through the Islamic Revolution, through the Iran-Iraq War, through the nuclear deal and its collapse, through the 12-day war in 2025, the massacre of protesters, the February 2026 strikes that killed the supreme leader, the closure of the Strait of Hormuz, and right up to the fragile ceasefire that is, as you're listening to this, still being held together with string and wishful thinking. The through line of it all? History doesn't disappear. It compounds. Every broken promise, every bad faith move, every moment where diplomacy could have worked out and didn't, it all adds up. And eventually, it explodes, turning into conflicts and situations like the one we're watching play out in the Middle East before our very eyes. If this episode made you think, share it. Not for me, but because this stuff matters and more people need to understand it instead of getting all their information from Jim Joe Schmo down the aisle. Thanks for listening. Stay curious. Don't be lazy. And I'm going to see you all next week. This is After Action. I'm Josh. Peace.